Friends, now I have placed some of the models onto the model. Look, let me show you from here. I placed it on the model like this. Our coating and other parts, our lighting parts, will be in Enscape. And I will use this wall. Not as a bookshelf, but more as a green wall. We will be able to download it ready-made from Enscape. Now, there is a part I want to show here. The cloud extension. This extension physically lowers the model from a distance, friends. And it allows organic parts like shawls and blankets to be processed onto them. Let me show you right away. We take our Sandbox tool from the toolbar. The Sandbox tool is a built-in tool in SketchUp. Friends, let's see. From here where it is, look, this is our tool with this tool. And the from stretch command here. Let's make a drawing here, friends. Of course, before making this drawing, look at us. It asks for the place called spacing. Below is 3 or 4. I marked it as 10 and made a drawing from here to there, and in a part like this. First, let me explain the logic. Logically, friends, this plane needs to be divided into parts so that it falls to the ground organically. Of course, if you do this with values lower than 10, it might be nicer. But to explain the current logic, I will lift it upwards. In this way, I bring it right on top, friends. Let me leave it. Like this and in this way. Let part of it be on top and part of it be below. Let it come a bit like this. Let it come like this. When it falls, it will leave such an effect on the ground. An organic effect. Now, after installing the plugin, friends, we right-click. Look, there is something called Cloud. Now there is Mac Cloud, Mac Collider. Mac Collider, stationary objects will be Mac Collider, friends. So, this all will be Mac Collider. This will also be Mac Collider. But this will be Cloud, the Mac Cloud issue. There is nothing else. We did this. Let's activate this part here of the Cloud plugin from the toolbars. Look, we have a play icon here. As you can see, I'm pressing the play icon, friends. Look, it is falling down by itself. Since our file is full, it's in such a slow effect. If you perform these tube behaviors, these tube commands in another file, it would be better, friends. Look, it will do this and download it, friends. Let it download like this. Let's see it once. Let me get a bit closer. Look, like this. Let's do it this way. As you can see, once you apply a texture on this, the same texture will be active on it. The reason for the slight cardboard effect here is because the squares are large. Friends, if the squares are a bit smaller and softer, you'll get a nicer effect here. Look, this is coming like this. Let me show you a bit more. Look, it will come here, and since this is a Mac Collider, it will stay here, friends. Look, it touched here and created an effect here. As you can see, it's a process like this. So parts like blankets or shawls like this, definitely. Not necessarily on top of this. You can place it on the bed or on a certain table or within a certain object arrangement. Friends, such a situation can be done. The effect here was something. This happened because it was a bit small. Press the stop button here, friends. Look, in such a situation, it stays where you leave it. As you can see, it's a process like this, friends. Of course, ours turned out a bit like paper, because the reason it's like paper is that we should set the spacing part here to 3. Let's narrow it down thoroughly, the area. And this part here, friends, like this. Look, let's bring it like this. Let it come like this. In an area like this. It will be more comfortable now. I took it up again. Let me bring it like this again, friends. We can enlarge it a bit more. Let it come like this. Let it come more. I recommend doing it in an empty file, because there is a possibility that the file might close. Sometimes, if the RAM is insufficient, the file might close. Friends, I'm turning this into Cloud Mac Cloud right away. These are easy anyway. That's why I pressed the play button, friends. Look, continues to fall down by itself. Since there is a physical effect, during this fall, it leaves an organic impact on the objects it sees and touches. Friends, look, as you can see here, it's coming downwards. You can adjust this in any way you want. I showed this just to demonstrate the logic of it. A very nice plugin. Look, as you can see, since we reduced the size of the squares a bit, it left a nicer effect. There's also something else, friends. We can interact with this using the mouse. Let me just show you. Let me get a bit closer. Look, I can drag it from here. If you want a slight ripple, it will stay when you press the stop button there. It's currently recording there, friends. It's beneficial to reduce these gaps a bit more, but the current effect is an impressive effect on the closing of the file, so it's currently inflated. Look, it's already rotating, trying to save. Look, it did it. I think it finished. Let's turn around like this, as you can see. It's going down quite a bit. Look, here. It's trying to close it completely. It came, and I pressed the stop button here. As you can see, this is the process, friends. And then you do it like this. You select all of them, etc. Appear if you want. The white surface needs to come up. Then when you select this with soft and smooth, look, you lift it up like this. Take a size by a cover, a shawl, or whatever you want to think of. That's how the process turned out, friends. Let me show you like this. As you can see, when we apply a texture or a coating on this, it really creates a nice effect. As you can see, like this. You can also leave this here. Yes, now let's do it like this. Let's say this. Let's delete this, friends. Let's take it like this, and let's take this too. Later, we will apply a coating on this and achieve a very nice appearance. You can do it halfway or fully. I mean, I did it fully, as if there is a cover. There might be a stretching part here. This could be a process like this, friends. Such a situation, I would like to say that it is a very nice and efficient process. You can use it anywhere you want. It can be used in making curtains, pillows, quilts, in everything, friends. Yes, such a process.